Good evening and good morning, good afternoon, wherever you may be in the world. I'm Vinita Shetty, the founder of Smart Citizen, which is a blogosphere based in Barcelona covering smart cities. And I'm also the convener of Placemaking India, which is part of Placemaking X with 15 affiliates worldwide. I spent part of the year in the city of Barcelona, of which Robert Hughes, the Australian writer, said in talking about the relationship between the city and General Franco, ports are distrusted. Dating from their days of shipping, port cities are too open to the influence of foreigners, to strange and non-native ideas, shifting and labile places, offering an ease of entry and exit that a landlocked place does not. The port is where the ser authentique, or essence of a country, as centralizing power imagines it, begins to fray. Karachi and Mumbai are both fishing villages on the Arabian Sea that were to grow to become the highest populated cities in their country. Spirited and liberal, classy and cosmopolitan, the dreams of millions of lives are made here. They're also the magnet for money, mobsters, and movie stars. Fast-paced and hardworking cities with a vibrant night economy. And far from their contentious capital cities, they also realize that religious and ethnic strife are simply bad for business. Even as recently as 1965, ferries operated between the two trading hubs, and business-savvy communities, Gujarati, Maharashtrian, Parsis, Goan, Sindhis, shuttled back and forth. There was a fluency between the cities. They also had once the cleanest beaches in Asia, and then there was the mutual romance with the monsoon, a romance that turns into a catastrophe every year as heavy rains and high tides paralyze the city. So the same breezes that riffled through my grandfather's apartment in my infancy on Marine Drive blow through Clifton Seaview in Karachi. So we're here
participants
in the city, and that will be the focus of the next hour. Here to introduce and moderate this conversation is Kiran Kalamdani from Kimaya Architects. And Kiran is, actually based in my hometown in Pune. He's an architect, urban designer, and heritage conservationist who also writes, engages in activism and education. And to also announce that, unfortunately, Arif Hasan had a stroke over the past week and is unable to obviously be on this call, but he's very ably represented by Suneela Ahmed, who is his mentee, and she will be taking us through his presentation. So over to you, Kim.
And extremely valid points raised through your presentation, because it is extremely important that people talk to each other, people understand each other, and people respect each other, which is how I think the success that you have been able to achieve in your plans for the Bandra, the Carter Road, or even the Juhu scheme. They are actually early harbingers, of a change that we all would like to accept and would like to promote through this kind of activism that we play as professionals in the field. So I think both our presentations today have brought in extremely valid approaches and shown some positive achieved in our cities, and where we don't have to go to the other extreme of trying to copy a Dubai or a Singapore or whatever in other places, and we can still go with the people who really need our services and who need to share the ecology as parts of the nature itself, and become participatory in that respect, while respecting environment, while respecting ecology, and various basic prerogatives that our cities need to readdress. I think Suneela, because the four aspects that you based your presentation on, which was the hydrology, the beach gentrification that is happening, the development plans that are taking place, and the community mobilization, where you showed your most successful, the biggest low-income housing project of Orangi. So how long has the Orangi project been going? And I mean, what is the number of people that are being housed in that? Can you give us some indications on this?
Okay, it started out in 1980s
Okay.
as basically an infrastructure development project, which where sewerage lines were laid. It was because it started out as an informal settlement, so there was no proper sewerage lines. So through this project, which Dr. Akhtar Hamid Khan envisaged, the communities were mobilized, and it was a population of 100,000 people at that time.
I see.
It is estimated that it has reached almost 300,000 people now, but because we haven't had any census since 1998, so we don't know the exact numbers, but that's an estimation that it has now 300,000 people live over there within that area. And the outfall of this project has been, after the laying of these sewage lines, they have actually ventured out into other projects, the Orangi pilot project. They have developed a research and training institute where they teach young people who have just finished high school mapping and documentation and other survey techniques and other very basic construction techniques. There are also economic outfalls in the sense that because now this low income settlement has become easily accessible, so people get businesses to their houses, like factory workers, factory owners can reach there, give out a material for the cottage, locally operating cottage industries. A number of houses have tuition centers within themselves, where people can now approach these houses. Previously, because there was so much sewerage and the accessibility was so poor, that even the economic status was very poor. So through a physical intervention, there has been economic and social upgradation as well, because obviously when they can earn better, they become socially upwardly mobile as well. So it is all very much connected, that although it started out as a very much a physical project, but it led to improvement of livelihoods in the longer run.
That's wonderful. Actually, it's a very positive way of actually going about it. And what I like about it is the gradual nature in which it has organically grown. I'm sure, just as PK said about the community's involvement as building up various relationships within the community, that fosters not just economic development, but also imparting of skills, or there is other social skills that are shared by people, and that gradually helps the entire community as at large grow.
Well, I think can I take this question
Yes,
first?
yes, please go ahead, PK. Yeah.
It's a very complex issue and a very complex question too. The point is that the bottom-up process has many contradictions and conflicts within it, as every movement has many questions for itself. It has many challenges within its own dynamics and many contradictions within, which the struggles have to continuously battle with, as much as the battle with the others outside the movement. For example, when we talk about bottom-up, how truly is it bottom-up in terms of integration of the diversity of people, and how effectively it has succeeded in uniting the excluded, the marginalized people in every neighborhood that we are talking about, or championing as a process of bottom-up planning in the city. That's a very complex question. For example, some time back, there was this discussion about gender equality. And gender equality is not just about participation of women, but even participation of women, which is significant to the idea of gender equality, again throws up many, many critical questions of the inner contradictions of marginalized women versus the privileged and the dominant women's groups. So this happens across, for example, how effectively have slum dwellers or the fishing communities been brought into the so-called public dialogues that I was championing and proudly announcing as a measure of success in all these projects into the decision-making process. Did they come in initially? Did they back out through the process? They couldn't relate to them. Why couldn't they relate to them? Why couldn't their participation be sustained throughout the process? Was the movement led then by the upper middle class, upper class people who aspire to have these beautified spaces, barricade them, create more barricaded spaces across cities? So one of our struggles is really these inner contradictions and struggles of the movements themselves or within movements themselves. The idea of de-walling the city, the idea of demolishing these hierarchies and exclusions, that really to me is a big point that I'm just leaving it yet as another question to the question that was